Hey there, I'm Paul Rabelais. I'm an attorney in Louisiana. For the last 22 years, I've devoted my really entire professional life to helping Louisiana families arrange their legal and tax and financial affairs so that they can protect what they have for themselves and for their family. I want to talk for the next few minutes about the big problem of what's called nursing home poverty. The way it works here in Louisiana is, it's oftentimes for families bad enough that they have to themselves reside in a nursing home or move a family member into a nursing home. Very few people look forward to the day where they have to reside in a nursing home, but it's just a practical fact of life. They're all full, they're all crowded, they can't build enough nursing homes to accommodate all the people who need to reside there, who need that skilled care. On top of that, though, and what makes the problem even worse is that when someone does go into a nursing home, Medicare and the typical health insurance doesn't pay for that long-term skilled care. The nursing home resident has to use their own resources, their own assets to pay for the cost of that care, typically $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. So they have to spend all of their life savings, and then after they spend all of their life savings and use up all of their assets, they can keep their home, but Medicaid has a lien on their home so that the sale of it is required when they die to reimburse Medicaid for what Medicaid spent on the nursing home resident's behalf. So it never is a pretty picture. The solution is it's all about planning ahead and taking advantage of oftentimes little-known legal strategies that are permitted by Medicaid so that you can arrange the things that you own in a way so that they are protected from that forced, being in a position where you're forced to spend them on the nursing home. So let's talk for a few minutes about that. First, let's go through some of the rules. Here's the deal. When somebody goes into a nursing home, they look at what you got. The nursing home administrators, the Medicaid office, they have access to all of the real estate records, the IRS records, the financial institution records. They take a look at everything you've got. So if you have some bank accounts, checking, savings, CDs, you've got to spend all of that. Any investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, any retirement accounts, IRAs, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401k accounts, you got to spend all of that money. If you own any real estate that's not your home, you've got to sell that and spend it. If you own an interest in a small company, an LLC, for example, you got to sell that for fair market value and spend that. The things that you don't have to spend immediately or you don't have to sell immediately are your home that you're living in, your car, and your prepaid funeral. They let you keep those. However, you got to spend everything else. And then when Medicaid starts paying for your nursing home, they have a lien on your home if it's in your estate when you die, which it is for everyone unless they plan ahead. And so when you die or when you and your spouse die, the house has to be sold to repay Medicaid. It's never a pretty picture. It leaves families penniless. So let's talk about what some of those strategies are to avoid that being a problem. There's a lot of different legal strategies. It's complicated. There's a different solution for every family based on their needs, what they own, their health situation. Are they single? Are they married? How close is the family? Who are the future heirs? Who's going to be making decisions in the future when you can't? All those factor into this plan that we develop for families, but a common theme that we see is first, you get the information that you need. You realize that to protect what you have, you've got to plan ahead. We'll talk in a minute about the 5-year look-back period. Families who protect what they have, plan ahead. Ahead means ideally 5 years before you go into a nursing home. If you plan ahead like that, you can protect everything. So what do? Well, there's a lot of different things you can do, but most of it involves getting assets out of your name 5 years before you go into a nursing home. Now, there's a lot of mistakes that are made when people attempt to get their assets out of their name to qualify for Medicaid. Some people really mistakenly just put everything in their kids' names. So that can be very dangerous, because when you just take what you have, whether it's your real estate or your stock or your money, and you just put it directly into your kids' names, you absolutely, positively, 100% lose control over what's going to happen to those assets after you put them in your children's names. So many things can happen. Children can have financial problems, they can have spousal problems. Sometimes children pass away before their parents, sometimes there's debts, there's IRS, other spouses who have influence. So there's just, and in addition, there's a number of tax disadvantages to just putting things directly in your children's names. When your children go to sell those assets in the future, maybe even after you die, they will pay a significant amount of capital gains tax. And again, a lot of that tax can be just avoided. So just putting stuff in the kids' names is typically not the best solution. You lose control, tax disadvantages. What many people do is very common now that families use trusts. Not going to get too much in depth now about how trusts work, but essentially it's a legal arrangement that gets set up so that the end result is assets that you own, perhaps your home, your real estate, your investments, maybe even savings, CDs, annuities, get retitled into the name of a trust, and this trust is really for you and your family. And there are very specific provisions in the trust which allow you to retain control over those assets for the rest of your lifetime. They go to your children or your heirs when you pass away, and because that trust was structured and drafted and worded in a very careful way that is consistent with what the Medicaid eligibility manual allows you to do insofar as retaining control over what you have, then that's a vehicle where you're getting it out of your name, you're starting the 5-year clock running, but your children have no rights to those assets until you either die or until you choose to give them rights to those assets. You stay in control for the rest of your lifetime. So when you come into our office and you visit with us or visit with me, we will go into a little more of the particulars that are involved. But again, it's essentially planning ahead, taking advantage of what the Medicaid rules permit you to do, oftentimes setting things up in a very particular type of trust which allows you to retain control. And if you go into the nursing home in the future, those assets are not countable for purposes of having to spend them on the nursing home. If you never go into a nursing home and then you pass away, those assets go directly from the trust to your children or your heirs, and from a tax standpoint, they get that what's called step up in basis, which is a big tax advantage to your children. So that's one concept to Medicaid planning. There are lots of others. There's a number of other strategies involved, which I'm not going to get into at this moment because this trust seems to be the most popular one. But there are some others, and depending upon your circumstances, there may be others that are more appropriate. So the bottom line here, it's tough when family members go into a nursing home. It's tougher when they've got to deplete their life savings and lose their home. The solution is not waiting till the last minute, because that's you'll fail. The solution is planning ahead. You know, ideally the smart families are doing this in their, you know, it's hard to put a general age on it, but in their 60s and their early 70s, while they have time to plan ahead at least 5 years ahead of going into the nursing home. So if you have questions and are interested in having a serious discussion about how easy it is to set things up in a way that you're protected, your children are protected, what you've worked for your entire lifetime doesn't get lost to nursing home poverty, you'll want to take that first step and give us a call, 866-491-3884. We'll walk you through the process of educating you about what's involved, and then if all sounds good, we'll help you implement that and put all in place. You'll have that peace of mind that everything's protected. I'm Paul Rabelais. You have a good day.